In the last video, we set up IIS and then we quickly tested it by going to localhost on our browser to see the IIS splash page. In this video, we'll be setting up PHP to run on IIS. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and press the Windows key and I will type in IIS, which will allow us to get to the Internet Information Services IIS Manager. And this is basically the control panels of IIS. I'm going to have this window open, and the next thing we'll do is we are going to open up our web browser, and we are going to search for Web Platform Installer and go to Microsoft's website and install the Web Platform Installer. And once it's finished downloading, I'm going to double click on it. Now agree, and I'm going to go ahead and install. Click yes. And I'm going to pause the video for now. So it looks like it finished installing, so I'm going to go ahead and click on finish, close out on this, close out on this. Let's go back to our IIS Manager. And I am going to just refresh this page. Looks like refreshing the page didn't work. I had to close out of the IIS Manager and essentially just reopen it again. Once you do that, you'll have a Web Platform Installer. Go ahead and double click on that. And then we will be searching for PHP. And there are a few PHP items that I typically install. Typically we'll get the latest version. So right now it looks like it's PHP 7.1.7. So I'll add that. I will also install the cache extension. So we'll add that. Looks like, let me try to get that to work. Let's see what's going on here. Well, these look good. Since I'm doing 7.1, I don't need the cache installer for 7.0, so I can X that out. I'll close that. And then for most people, you guys will need to install the SQL Server drivers. So this one, for me, I'm going to, in another video, manually install the drivers so that I can connect to Azure. Once that's set, let me just double check. Everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and click on install. I'll accept to the license agreement. And then I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while this installs. Now that it finished installing, looks like we have a problem, which is the PHP Manager for IIS. There was a problem installing it. Everything else installed successfully. That's okay. I've seen this before. So in order to get the PHP Manager for IIS to get installed, what we need to do is, because the PHP Manager failed to install, and it's most likely because I'm using a Windows 10 machine, the installer just doesn't work with it. So the best solution I found online, and it's easier than editing the registry and installing .NET 3.5 and all that stuff, is to just download and install the PHP Manager manually. You can grab the PHP Manager from this particular website, which I'll also put into the into the show notes. But the website is pltgeorge.com/PHP Manager. And here you can just download the MSI file and then essentially install it as administrator. And once you finish with that process, when you go into the IIS Manager, you will also see a PHP Manager, which then when you double click will give you access to easily change different versions of PHP, allows you to edit the INI file, which we will be doing shortly, as well as other features, the error logs, and so forth. So having the PHP Manager, it is optional, but it's very, very useful. It's a very handy tool to have, especially later on when you need to upgrade your PHP version. And sometimes you have to like go back to kind of work through some incompatibility issues with your app. So now that PHP is installed, or the PHP Manager is installed, and prior to the PHP Manager being installed, we were installing PHP itself. Let's go ahead and test to see if it's working. So I am going to go to CINET pub www root, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a simple PHP page. So let me just fire up Notepad and just do an easy typical echo hello world type of thing. And I'm going to go ahead and save it as test.php. I'll throw that into the www root folder. And now when I go to localhost /test.php, it should say hello world. And there you go. So we just set up PHP. So in the next video, I'll show you how to set up your machine with GitHub so that you can then do version control. See you then.